Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to be talking about Civilization 5. Now, Civilization 7 is on the horizon, and because of this, I play a lot of Civilization 6. You've seen things on the channel about that. I really wanted to go back and play Civ 5, and the reason why I want to kind of take a look at it before Civ 7 came out is Civ 5 was, like, even though I played Civilization 3, Civilization 4, and I like those games, or 3 not so much, but 4 I liked at the time. Civilization 5 is the game I think I really got into this series. I know I'm not going to say I'm any good at the game, but I always liked Civ 5 when it came out, and then I had a hard time going from Civ 5 to Civ 6. I was one of those people that kind of struggled with the whole district, and there's a lot of stuff in Civ 6 that took me, as you know, there's a video on this channel, about 900 hours to really start to understand the game, and even then I played pretty poorly. But Civ 5 is a game that I was like, I want to remind myself about this game and like some of the changes that happen, and like maybe my own personal preferences of what's good and bad compared to Civ 6, because we know that Civ 7, just from the information they're putting out there, is a wildly different game. It's a lot more, looks and feels a lot more like Humankind. I'm sure that it's got its own unique things going on as well, but that's a better comparison than something like Civ 6 and Civ 5, because it's just the game's changing in drastic ways, basically. But Civ 5, this is the game that I think still holds up very well today. Something I really enjoyed about this was the fact that it felt like putting on a bit of like a comfy set of slippers. You know, it was like, okay, I haven't played this in a while, but there's also like a little bit of a simplicity step down from Civ 6 in some areas that feels quite nice. You know, you've still got the hex-based grid. You've still got the fact that you can't stack units. I think Civ 4 was the last time you could stack units. There's a lot of things that were introduced in the expansions, because base game Civ 5 is very broken. But there was a lot of things that were introduced into the expansions that made this game feel very good, like spying and things like that. I think diplomacy got added in, as in like the World Congress. There was just certain things got added in as time, faith as well. And with both the expansions, the game feels fairly competent. One thing that I noticed straight away is the game like goes quicker. Like, don't get me wrong, if you're playing Civ at the highest level, or unless you're really thinking about everything you're doing, this game feels quicker to play. It feels more streamlined than something like Civ 6. Civ 6 adds in so much. There's like levels to each of these Civilization games. There's like the bottom level, middle, and top is where it's a slower pace. You're thinking about each individual tile, you're thinking about what you need and changing things on the fly. Civ 5, you can kind of play a game in a couple of hours quite quickly, just because of the way the game's set up. You know, admittedly, I play it on like lower difficulties. I'm not playing on the higher ones, but difficulty and AI and stuff in Civ's never been its strong point. But the actual getting cities set up, getting things done, getting money, getting resources, all that sort of stuff, getting your civilization to a point where you've got science and culture and all this type of things coming in, it just feels a bit more streamlined. It feels a bit easier to get to those points and to those milestones, which is a good thing. One thing that I have fought for and will continue to fight for of this game is the culture tourism system. Now, originally I don't think tourism was in the game, but culture and tourism in Civ 5 is a lot easier to understand than in Civ 6. In Civ 6 you have the civics tree, which is primarily focused on culture, but it never does a very good job explaining the whole culture is your defense and tourism is your offense in terms of how you trying to win a culture victory. Civ 5 pretty much tells you this straight off the bat. This is how these work. But the one thing I really liked is the way that Civ 5's you can adopt policies. So rather than culture just being like you got this tree, you have multiple smaller trees that you can pick from when you get X amount of culture. And what that means is you're like, oh, I'm going for a lot of cities, or I'll go for like the expansion one, and that opens up things like little buffs that will help create bigger cities. Or you can go for like an isolationist one, which is like, I'm going to go for 1 or 2 cities maybe, but they're going to grow to big sizes. Later on you can pick things like rationalism, which is like all science, or like aesthetics, which is all to do with trying to get is aesthetics. I think I'm pretty sure aesthetics is the one that helps you get like the city-states. I could be wrong there, but basically you have these individual trees. One's for city-states, one's for land trade, one's for sea trade, fighting units. Like it just is so much. I just think the whole system works better than just producing culture and going up the civic tree, because everyone's doing that. Like, obviously you can do the same thing here, but then it also leads to ideologies later on, and they give you other buffs, and that can have an impact on your game. I think just overall, I just like culture and tourism in this game. Tourism kind of works the same. It's just based on building wonders and great works and stuff, and that has an impact as well. But it's just a system that I think is just easier to understand overall versus something like Civ 6. Going on from that then, we have things like each individual Civ in this game. There's quite a few of them. They all have their own, you know, their unique units or their unique buildings, or their own, like, if you play as England, for example, you get extra movement on the sea. What I quite like about it, and it's a coin toss, because I'm not saying that it's worse in something like Civilization 6, but in this, whatever your bonus is, it has an impact on your gameplay, but you can still play, like, literally any victory condition. And you can in Civ 6 as well. It's just a lot of the Civs in there, especially the later ones, get crazy bonuses for certain things or work very specific ways, and that doesn't seem to be as impactful now. So if you play as like America, who can buy tiles cheaper, that's literally your buff. You can buy tiles cheaper, and you've got these units. It's not some big paragraph of like you get this and you get this and you get this, which is kind of nice, because it means that you can kind of go like, okay, I really want this buff, I want to be able to play like this, but this might be culture focused, but actually I want to go and just have fights with people, and you can do that, and I quite like that. It makes it makes just, you have less choices to make, I guess, which, depending on how you feel, is a positive or a negative, but it definitely makes that you can pick somebody and be like, okay, I do get the buffs in this direction, but I might want to also do this, and you're not penalized for doing that. The one exception that I can think of, and probably what the footage you're going to be seeing, is if you play as Venice, in which case Venice only has one city, and you buy city-states, and they become puppet cities. And they are a bit different to anybody else, which is probably not the best example to have on screen while I'm using it talking about this. One other thing as well is combat seems easier. I'm not sure if it's easier or just faster. It just seems like attacking a city. Now in Civ 6, if you haven't got they made it that if you have walls, you need things to deal with walls. Walls in this just add combat strength to your city. So in that, you need to really think about your combat, like surrounding the city, starving them, using your right things for tackling the city, right things for tackling the walls. In this, you can kind of just get a bunch of units and run in. Like, you're still not going to have a great time if you've only got, like, spearmen running into a base. You do need a mixture of stuff, having archers, having warriors, all that sort of stuff early game. I quite like using boats to attack from the sea, so that helps, like, long-range things like battleships and stuff later on. But it definitely feels like sieging a city isn't as difficult to deal with. And obviously, just fighting in general, it just seems a bit, again, more streamlined in a lot of ways, but not as crazy. Which again, a lot of this stuff is a 50-50 coin toss on whether you prefer one game or the other. I don't have a preference for a lot of this stuff other than the culture side of things. There's things like their happiness being global, which that is something I do prefer. I like having, like, here's your global happiness, and you can see a breakdown of everything that's affecting it. Civ 6, they do it per city, which again can be quite good, because it means that only one city is having issues, the rest everything's fine. But I think maybe for me, I do like things being kind of like condensed into one thing. I'm like, okay, this acts as a resource. A lot of these decisions, by the way, that were made in Civilization 6, I completely understand why they did it and why they choose to, you know. There's things like workers, for example. Workers in this game was the last time that workers, you know, take X amount of turns to build an improvement. They never go away unless they're captured or killed. Civ 6 changed that, so they instantly do stuff, but you only get free charges. There's no right or wrong there. They're both interesting ways of doing it. It's just that's one of the big changes. It's really interesting, like, that a lot of that stuff did change over time. So you don't want the games to be identical, you know. One other thing that definitely is less intrusive is faith and religion in Civ 5. It's not that you can't spread it, because, you know, that's always whatever, but it's because there's no faith victory. The buffs that you get, the way it does it, it feels less broken. Civ 6 is very easy to break faith and use it and, like, pump out settlers, pump out workers, stuff like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do like the fact that faith should be very much a side grade. it's like, oh, I've got faith, I can help increase culture by being able to build pagodas, or maybe all of my farmland get an extra food. You're not going to win off that, but it is going to help you grow your cities. Like, it's a buff in that sense. Excuse me. But it isn't like game breaking, where monumentality in a golden age in Civ 6 is a very, very... I don't want to necessarily say it's broken, but it is very... It's designed in a way that if you know how to abuse that, you will get an insane amount of workers, an insane amount of settlers out of that. If you're going for faith, and it's kind of nuts. And that's something I would like to see change. I do like it being this less of a currency and more of here are specific buffs to your nation, and that's what it stays like. What those buffs are can be a mixture of things, but they're not to the point where you're getting, easy settlers and stuff like that, because that's not necessarily what you want from Civ. There are a couple of things that are negatives with Civ 5. I played this with my brother and Don Hayes and Fruity, and ultimately this game, I can understand those guys are saying it looks a bit dated. I can kind of get it in some aspects. I don't know if I feel the UI is dated, but it's very much, this is a game that came out in 2010. It's from quite a while ago. I actually think it looks very clean, but I would say that the stylized graphics in Civ 6 are significantly better. It's a lot easier. It's got easier readability. When you put on all like the different buttons of like yields and things, it's less cluttered. In this, if you've got a patch of horses, it shows you like a circle with it pointing to it with the horses in it. You suddenly zoom out and there's loads of those. It can feel very cluttered. So there's some choices that were definitely made to improve it. The actual graphics of the game are kind of similar to what Civ 7 is going to be like, because Civ 6 very much is cartoony. And I quite like Civ 6's art style. I actually think it works quite well. The whole uncovering the map as well, it looks like a big like old atlas. And I think that's just one of those things. When you go for a more realistic approach, and after time those things do look dated. But I think the UI, for the most part, isn't that bad. It's just a bit clean, and hopefully they, with Civ 7 it's easy to read but tarted up a little bit, so it's not too bad. One thing that is, after playing Civ 6 for as long as I have, the music in Civ 5 is kind of weak, but that's because Civ 6, they had music specific to each civilization, and some of the music in Civ 6 are awesome. In Civ 5, it's just a bunch of tunes. Like there's some famous tunes in there. It's just not. They just don't have the same appeal, personally. One thing that never changes is just the AI being a bit pants. Like, the way that they denounce you on things, you're gonna get into this loop of them denouncing you as soon as you declare war. Like, it's very unlikely they're ever gonna stop denouncing you after you have war. They'll always ask for stupid things. Like, yeah, the AI is just one of those ones. Like, Civ's never really had the best AI, and even up in the difficulty, it's less about the AI getting smarter and more about just giving them a boost, a head start, more buffs, things like that. So, that's no different to what it is. And a couple of other things in this, like, that feel somewhat weaker than maybe the Civ 6 counterparts. So city-states in this are very easy to manipulate. If you've got a lot of money, you can just buy up all the city-states, make them your allies, and off you go to winning a diplomatic victory. And then the spying side of stuff, spying is just a lot more limited in what you can do with it. I do like the diplomat side of it. I think that's cool. You can put those in people's cities and later on gain culture. But spying, for the most part, you don't really have, it's very hands-off. Like, and the AI will constantly do it. Even if you catch them, they're just like, oh, sorry, and then they carry on doing it again. They're a bit weird like that. There's probably some things that I've missed talking about this, while, that are different, majorly different. But those are the sort of things that stick out to me with Civilization 5. It's a game that I will come back to probably multiple times. I think it's really fun. I think it's like a bit of a simpler experience. I'm sure when I'm playing Civ 7, I'll have my moments of being like, raging at it. But it'll be, like, I like the fact that Civ changes up every time. It might take me a while to get used to those games, but I do like that. I think they should chop and change and try to improve in areas and try different stuff, because that's what those games are about. Civ 3, Civ 4, and Civ 5 are the most alike, and probably Civ 1 as well, and Civ 2. But like 3, 4, and 5, the ones that I played, are the most alike in many ways, like automated workers, the way that these games go. Civ 5 stopped stacking units, which was a really smart decision. you know, there's a lot of stuff there. Don't get me wrong, the base game Civs, especially like how 5 was when it first came out, it's just so unbalanced to where it is now. Civ 6, same sort of thing. Where it is now, it's in a really good state. Ultimately, these games do their best as time goes on when they iron out some of the kinks and things like that. But replaying Civ 5, I can genuinely say I'm having a good time with it. I think people will really enjoy this game if they're not getting on with it. I do see people hating on Civ 6, and I think a lot of those people are just, some of their reasoning is kind of just silly. But I understand that not each of these games is going to be for everybody. But if you are looking for a very, like, confident, solid version of Civ that it's got some differences from what you're used to playing in Civ 6, check out Civ 5. It's probably not that expensive either at the moment. I haven't seen the price, but honestly, it's just a fun game. I really enjoyed revisiting it, and I'm redoing it now so that I've got fresh Civ 6, Civ 5 in my head when we go into Civ 7 in a couple of weeks in February. I am excited for it. You know, there is not issues. There are some worries that maybe the elements of humankind being very similar, but you know, I haven't played the game yet. I'm looking forward to playing the game. You guys will get my opinion on it when I'm ready to talk about it, because Civ is a game that I'm not going to just play it and be like a couple of hours and be like, know what the game's about. I need to put some time into it. But ultimately, Civ 5, play it. It's fun. It's different enough from Civ 6, and it'll probably be different enough from Civ 7. So I would recommend, if you get a chance, give it a whirl. Anyway, that's going to do it for me today then, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content like this, then hit subscribe. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description as always. And until next video, I will see you then.